Hello, I'm going to continue talking about psychometric science by describing these cultures, these tribes, in terms of castles. Now, I hope everyone has seen a castle. Um, I've never been in a castle. It's one of my major, no, sorry, I've been in one castle, but I was like 8. I don't know if that counts. So, I need you to picture a castle because this is actually a good analogy for how these things are structured psychometrically. So, first of all, I want you to imagine that every culture, every tribe is a castle, and it's situated in the countryside, and the spaces between it are what they used to say no man's land. Dangerous, unsafe, unsavory, full of the kind of people that are driven out of towns, people that are not perceived as having the social desirability to be among other people. So automatically, participation in a culture requires some kind of ability to conform to some kind of standard behaviorally and socially. So, what is directly outside this is these wildlands, these hinterlands. Then there is a wall that encircles a castle. And that wall has a gate in it, sometimes a drawbridge. But the idea is that the castle and its inhabitants have a definite say as to who enters and who is allowed to stay. So a castle is, while it's depicted beautifully, it is a defensive place that has to do with war much more than with romance. So you will see as you think about cultures in your own experience, churches and businesses and clubs and schools, that there are people that never quite make their way into even the normal social structure itself. Omegas, equivalent perhaps to beggars, equivalent perhaps to um, people that have been driven from society, beggars, lepers. But you will find that at the gate, there are people whose job it is to figure out whether you belong there and to screen you, to determine whether you belong. And they will, sometimes escort you out, sometimes prevent you from coming in. And this person, once again, will feel no sense of guilt or shame in enforcing those rules on this person. And remember, they see themselves as generous to any sort of omega that happens to be on the periphery by talking to them at all, giving him any sort of charity. So if you can get through the gate of conformity, you can come to a courtyard of participation, wherein you will find essentially betas, some omegas that are trying to conform and be reclassified as betas, and betas that are trying to gain enough internal fortitude and exemplarism to be maybe reclassified as alphas. And then you have those alphas that are proving that they are alphas. But these people have no social power, no control over the operations of the castle, but they're in it. They're participants. They speak the language. They follow its laws. They follow its customs. If they don't, they will be sternly corrected, and if they don't respond to correction, they will be evicted, removed from the culture, and made into an enemy of the culture. Anyone in that is being constantly judged for ability to embody the DNA of the culture, constantly tested whether or not they're improving, and being sort of taught and retaught how they're supposed to be behaving. That person's got to respond well to the correction of the alphas, and feel like that's a good thing that somebody is, culturally smacking them around a bit to get them in line. So what is within this courtyard is a tower, and the tower itself has a heavily defended door, and that door is the door to hierarchy. And once somebody gets through that door by being such an exemplary example of the values and the DNA of the culture, they can become part of its leadership, part of its hierarchy. But you notice in the nature of hierarchy, that person is automatically submitting to the hierarchy. Unless you're somehow brought in immediately at the top of it, your expression of alphaness is also an expression of betaness. If that makes any sense at all. Your expression of alphaness is also an expression of your betaness, because you're saying, I want to get out of the courtyard of participation into the tower of hierarchy, the tower of leadership. And the way it's going to happen is I'm showing that I am the subordinate to all other people that are in this hierarchy as well. So that is part of how someone elevates through it. Being dominant and being corrective and being an example of the culture's values, but also being subordinate to those that are above them. So you will notice that those that are trying to climb hierarchies are using every speaking opportunity they have to both reiterate their dominance and reiterate their submission. They're reiterating both, sometimes the same sentence. And it looks like I'm real good at what I do, and whatever egotistical or humble way you're supposed to say it in your subculture, combined with, wow, do we have a great CEO? Do we have a great manager? Do we have a great district manager, or what? Do we have a great fill in the blanks of whoever is above you in the hierarchy? Do we have a great blank, blank, blank? And they're simultaneously issuing both an alpha and a beta statement as a way of reassuring the fear that is in the hierarchy. As remember we stated before, the more layers in the hierarchy, the more fear there is within that culture of the culture's DNA being lost. Because the only reason for multiple layers is paranoia about that which is considered valuable not being overseen. It's a fear and a paranoia that, that the kids are going to burn down the house. A fear and a paranoia that you loaned your friend the keys and he's going to steal your car. So I need a second friend to watch him. So these are all behaviors, by the way, that are inherent in fallen man. They're not the behavior of spirit-filled people, but we are, throughout our lives, going to be a mixture of these things. A great Bible teacher once told me there's a good dog and a bad dog in you. You get nowhere by beating the bad dog. What you do is you feed the good dog and you starve the bad dog. In this case, these are all fallen, Cain, bad dog behavior. But they are the human behavior we're dealing with and must be analyzing if we want to understand people correctly. As somebody rises up that tower of leadership, of hierarchy, they get more executive ability, and that's in corporations and in social groups and in ministry organizations. All those things are true. They have the ability to more and more say, because you all trust me and invest in me with power to make these kind of decisions, some of them I just make. Some of them I come to you for, for assistance. Sometimes I just make. I mean, that is a truly alpha behavior, the executive decision making. But they're perceived to be doing so on behalf of the group, with the group's best interest in mind, because they are an embodiment of the DNA and values of the group. So that when that person also has the vantage point of being able to see the whole organization clearly, they begin to see possibilities of ways that they could grow and change, but they know that they can't. And that is where the fourth door begins to exist. because the only way you get a beta can just walk through a door, provided they show the right beta traits. Omega has no door. They're going to be treated as inferior until they show themselves as being capable of the beta level of social submission. Nobody really enters as an alpha. They're either brought in from somewhere else or show themselves through a process of simultaneous alpha and beta messaging to be of alpha quality or alpha characteristics. They begin to realize that there are certain needs that they have as a group that are better met by people that aren't there. And those people are often sigmas because they're of a different perspective, and they're not cowed by the hierarchy in a way that limits their ability to say what they think or feel. Every alpha and every beta's statements about the hierarchy are limited by their own relationship to the hierarchy. An alpha can't say things that demean the organization that's going to elevate him. A beta can't say things that disrespect the organization that is caring for him. And an omega is frightened of everything and everyone, and therefore can't speak, and nobody's listening to omegas anyway. So what you have in a sigma is a person who can see the hierarchy clearly, will speak honestly about it because there is not fear. And so what happens is you have a fourth kind of door that's created by invitation. And because they're so far up the food chain, there is a fear this person is going to cause unrest, that this person is going to cause confusion, that this person is going to confuse alphas by not being submissive, confuse betas by not being domineering, confuse omegas by treating them like a person, because sigmas treat people based on their actual conduct rather than their place in a social hierarchy. Think it through. Or just ignore you. That's the other possibility. You could be entirely ignored whether you're high value or low value, but then again, that's egalitarian in a way, sociologically. So that this castle has secret passages, apparently, because that is how you can't violate the structure of the culture just because once every year, 2 years, or 10 years, you bring in this outside person who maybe they're short-term, maybe they're long-term. They often have a very strange relationship with the hierarchy because the hierarchy's fear is expressed in giving them a bunch of like halting, fearful, semi-controlling statements. Well, as long as you don't do this. I know I said you had creative freedom, but don't do this. I know I said we wanted your real opinion, but don't do this. And a strange blended mixture of the actual authority and executive decision making of that hierarchy as they give them a certain kind of ultra limited carte blanche. As a consultant, as a specialized speaker, as an artist, as a trainer, as something that that group can utilize in very specific ways that does not require them to be plugged into the hierarchy as precisely as someone else would be. So the castle has an outside where the omegas are. Has a dog door for omegas who are not going to be treated equal to betas to come in. Has a gate, and that gate is for making sure undesirables don't come in. And in that courtyard, you have betas and people trying to qualify as something more than that. Then there is a door that leads into a tower of participation and leadership. That tower is made of fear, but it is also made of authority, and it's only those people that can bring in sigmas to qualify specific non-hierarchical tasks and wisdom within the vicinity of the hierarchy. Thank you. Have a great day.